Hello everyone, welcome back to For Strategy Gaming. Going to be showing you a strategy video today. We're going to start off with a Zerg strategy and actually going to be coming out with some Terran and Protoss ones as well, so hold on tight if you're not a Zerg player, and if you'd like some other strategies, they will be coming out later in the day. So again, Zerg strategy today. Let's start off by looking at the players. The Zerg player we're going to be focusing on is Moonglade, and the opponent in this matchup is Birambao. Let's go right into Moonglade vision though. So what we're going to be looking at today is going with something that's pretty standard nowadays for, whoa, that's not what I want to do. Something that's pretty standard nowadays for Zerg players, and that is of course going for a quick expansion, and then moving into kind of a macro game, making units when you need them to defend. But as far as the basic unit composition, we're going to be looking at Speedling Muta. Now obviously a very standard build. If you're a Roach Hydra player, if that's something that you're more comfortable with, that's fine, and that's obviously a viable build in certain situations and certain matchups. But I would definitely become comfortable, or at least learn how to play out the Speedling Muta build, because it is very strong in all of the matchups for the most part. It's really about positioning and using your units effectively. Using and going with a Speedling and Muta build isn't about brute force. It isn't about overwhelming your opponent. It's more about circumventing your opponent, avoiding them, and harassing, doing as much damage as possible, trying to pick off economy, trying to stop expansion, stuff like that. So starting off with very standard things, going with that quick expansion that went down at about 14 supply, that 14 hatch. You can see here the opponent scouting it. So these are the Terran opponent is well aware of the fact that we're going for quick expansion. Now this is going to be followed up with a 15 pool. And then actually holding off in the extractor, not going for an extractor right after, saving up those resources to get double queens and to drone up really hard before we worry about an extractor. Now moving forward, the one thing that you're definitely going to want to keep an eye out for is the second early barracks. If he was going for 2 barracks push, there would likely be the second barracks up by now. There also wouldn't be any Vespian. You can just tell right here in scouting, seeing this SCV holding that Vespian can there, you know that he's not going for, oh that's a little unfortunate, you know that he's not going for that early 2-racks push, or at least it wouldn't be as effective. Now he stopped scouting at that point. I would suggest, don't engage that SCV fully, get that full scout and scout your opponent and see what's happening. But again, I told you how in looking and in watching exactly what was going on, you saw that SCV with the Vespian can. That means there's a refinery up, and that means that early 2-racks push isn't coming. And the reason I mention this and I emphasize this so much is because the real big threat to fast expanding from against a Terran opponent is that 2-racks early marine bunker push. Now even if it was coming, even if you saw coming, you wouldn't have to cancel your hatchery by any means. Essentially what you would want to do is just really focus and try to pay attention to the dark areas around your expansion and watch where that bunker is trying to be placed down. And once you find it, you need to kill the SCVs trying to build the bunker and just prevent it from going up. If you can stop that bunker from going up, you should be all set. So you can see here starting out with just 4 Zerglings, nothing. This is very standard as well. And then from this point, just going to be working on getting drones. Now let's look at the timings here. The spawning pool came up at 15 supply, and this extractor wasn't until 24. That gave us those extra minerals to get these 2 queens right away as soon as this expansion came up and as soon as that spawning pool was up. Now going to be getting 1 spine crawler for some early game defense, also spreading some creep. That's a great idea there as well. The idea here is that we're going to try to drone up, and we want to defend ourselves from an early push. Now you can see here moving up with a couple of Zerglings, checking exactly what's going on. We saw the factory there, saw that bunker being placed. You're also going to see this Hellion, of course, and now in seeing that Hellion, we're going to know we're pretty safe in getting the spine crawler. Maybe even repositioning the spine crawler to here wouldn't be the worst idea. It would protect both of these areas, and you could use the queen to protect over here. So that's definitely an option, something to consider. Now in general, what do we want to do? Well, we want to scout. We want to see what's going on with our opponents. So grabbing Xel'Naga Tower is obviously a great idea. It's going to be difficult once there are Hellions on the board. You're going to need a few Zerglings, and you're going to need to get Surround to prevent Hellions from doing a lot of damage. You can also see here coming out with an additional queen. This is, of course, a great idea for multiple reasons, one of which is more spreading of creep, also allowing constant spawn inject larvae on your hatcheries. But the other thing is it's going to protect against early Banshees. Early Banshees, pretty popular build here. You can see in scouting with that Overlord, seeing this starport right here, it tells you that at the very least, even though there's no attachment right there, there's a possibility of Banshees coming out. So you want to be able to prepare for that, and the only real early game anti-air that you're going to have is queens and spore crawlers. So getting an additional queen or 2 is not going to be an idea. We can see here also coming out that metabolic boost, and here's that layer upgrade. Now let's look at those timings there. The layer came up at 34 supply, also that second extractor at 34 supply, and then 41 supply getting that metabolic boost. So even though that metabolic boost was delayed, you still got it, and that's something else to really think about you need that speed upgrade. If you're going to use Zerglings effectively, you absolutely need that speed upgrade. You can see now coming out with some Zerglings as defense. You're really worried at this point in the game about a push, but up until this point, wasn't too concerned. Now here comes this medevac filled with units, and we're going to see that because of the creep spread. So that's obviously really good. That's something that's really great there. Another one of the benefits of spreading creep is seeing things like drops coming, and there you go. So being able to fend that off quite easily with those queens. Again, this is our only anti-air, and that's going to be able to fend off that medevac pretty much no problem. Using the Zergling is going to have some inside of our base, because again we are worried about that drop. Here comes the Spire as well. Basically, as soon as that layer finished and we had those 200 extra Vespian, getting that Spire, and the exact time there was 52 supply. So trying to come down with the drop, and again positioning the Zerglings in a proper place, it's going to be exactly what you need to do. You do have to worry about something like this, being able to drop down with those Marines and getting sniped down, but once that speed upgrade comes up, you're going to have no problem getting a nice little surround on these units and then attacking. There we go. And pretty much nullifying any of that push right there with those Zerglings. So what are the ideas? What are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to get vision here. Let's grab some more Xel'Naga Towers. Seeing that Banshee coming now, it's going to allow us to pull the Queens forward to try to take care of that as much as possible. Now the Spire is just about up, so at this point you don't really have to worry too much about Banshees. Now he is going to be seeing this, and our Terran opponent feels at this point pretty well prepared, and the reason is because in this game you can see here, although not known to us in the game as a Zerg player, and obviously in this game Moonglade wasn't aware of that, but Thors is a really strong possibility when you're going for mutas, and seeing that Spire, the Terran opponent knew that mutas were coming, and in so decided to get Thors. Now the thing is that with Mutalists, although Thors are strong against them, they're only really effective when your Mutalists are clumped up. If you can do what's known as magic boxing and spread out your Mutalists, then you're going to be in a really strong spot. Now let's just talk about this build in general. And generally speaking, what are we trying to do here? Well, with this Speedling Muta build, you're trying to harass your opponent, you're trying to stop them from expanding, you're trying to contain them. That's the idea. So hitting from multiple angles, that's going to be a really great idea. Checking expansions, doing what you can to do expansion harassment, moving into the main base, trying to do some damage. Obviously the Thor and those Marines are going to do a pretty good job of pushing back what we have here for Mutalists. You can see also coming out with this upgrade, getting this additional expansion, and just in general as Zerg, what you want to try to do is try to keep expanding, try to contain your opponent, and that's the goal, and that's the idea behind this Speedling Muta build. You have to realize that the speed of these units is what makes them most effective. You can get from point A to point B very quickly, and then obviously Mutalists very fast as well, but the added benefit of being flyers makes them that much more effective. So doing things like flying into the back of the base, picking off a building or two, and then when he moves to defend against that, grabbing your Speedlings and moving them right into his expansion. Now you can see here at this point the Terran opponent has not expanded. He's actually planning for an early strong push and then expanding at that point, and that's pretty standard as well for Terran. Now trying to move forward, we see this push coming. Again, using the speed and mobility of our Mutalists, we can see this push coming, and now it's time to prepare. Bringing the Zerglings into position, and something else you want to take note of is what you really want to do is not fight in small, choked off areas. You want to wait till he's spread out, and you want to be able to get a nice surround. So we're going to see moving forward, spreading out those Mutalists, getting that nice magic box so that they don't take a lot of splash damage, and then attacking the Thors. And the same thing's going to happen here. You're going to move over the Thor, spread them out, and then attack the Thor. If you attacked in that one big clumped up group, then your Mutalists would basically be in a lot of trouble. And that's something, obviously, you don't want that to happen. So at this point, the Terran player did call GG, and that is because he lost the bulk of his army, and he sees the amount of Mutalists we have on the board. And at this point, he realizes that it'd just be too much. Looking into space, you can see here, let me go back just one notch here. And you're going to see that he didn't have much of anything left in his base. That it was kind of a really strong push, and he was hoping that it would do damage and he was going to be able to expand. But with proper unit positioning and good job of spreading out those Mutalists to prevent death from that Thor splash damage, the push was nullified, and then as such he realized it's pretty much the end of the game. So general things to take away from this strategy video, we looked at just the basic Speedling Muta build. We talked about how to effectively play it. Again, try to contain your opponent, try to stop them from expanding. A big part of the reason, aside from him planning that push, but a big part of the reason he didn't expand a little bit earlier is because of the threat of those Speedlings. Speedlings on the board make it very difficult for players to expand. They can move down things like siege tanks and try to bunker up, but the great thing is that with your Mutalists, if you position things properly, then you can take care of them. So let me just deposit a scenario here. Let's pretend that he expanded here. And then instead of Thors, that he went for some siege tanks. So we had some siege tanks, say, placed over here, and maybe one on the high ground, and maybe one back here in this position. So obviously at that point, pushing into here with your Zerglings to try to deny the expansion, not going to be really effective. But things you can do and things that will typically work is if you move in your Zerglings, it's going to have him bring some of his unit down to try to fend off those Zerglings. And then once that happens, you can swoop your Mutalisk right in the back, pick off a couple of tanks, and then feel free to engage your Zerglings. So these are different scenarios, and these are different things to consider. And again, in general, when playing as Zerg, you want to get a surround. You don't want to fight off in these small areas. Like, you wouldn't want to engage here with your Speedlings if he was pushing down and the mass of his army formed sort of a wall. If you tried to push in, you wouldn't be able to get a surround, and that'd be a problem. So always try to fight in areas that are a little more open, that are going to allow your units to get us around. So that pretty much wraps it up. We took a look at a basic Speedling Muta build, took a look at some different methods of harassment. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let's go over that build order really quick here. Started off with that fast expansion of 14. 15 supplies when we got that spawning pool, 24 supply getting the extractor. Again, that's a little bit later than usual because we wanted to drone up a little bit and we wanted to get those 2 queens right away. Then a 34 supply, seeing a layer, and then that additional extractor dropped down right at 34 supply. 41 supply, the metabolic boost came out, and then at 52 supply, as soon as the spire, as soon as the layer finished, and we had those extra 200 Vespian, you dropped the spire right away. And then I was also followed up with these 2 additional extractors, because realize if you're trying to go for Mutalisk, going off of 1 base and just 2 extractors, it's going to be very difficult to afford any significant amount of them, and you're definitely going to need those additional extractors. And then just continue to expand, try to contain your opponent, try to harass them as much as possible, and you should be all set. So yeah, guys, once again, this has been Force from Force Strategy Gaming. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, keep watching and keep owning. Quick work of that Colossus Archon going to town over here with these 2 Stalkers inside the Little One's base. Little One production very low, Little One gathering very low. In fact, Little One has no mining right now. White Raw is mining free. Little One is looking to be in a lot of trouble at this point with no mining going on. He's trying to do some work over here at this high yield, but he has very little SCVs, and the Little One calls good game. So what a game between these 2 players. I am thoroughly excited that I decided to cast this, and you know what? I guess I lied because the game time goes on for another 10 minutes, so I think White Raw just kind of hung out in this game for a long time.